This is Women in Linux. Welcome to the Women in Linux podcast, exposing women to information and careers in technology.
Thanks for joining Women in Linux with your hosts Tamika Reed and Dee Parler. Today we have Ithan Payne, Creative Director at Ithan Payne Creative. Ithan.
Dion.
How are you?
Lee. I'm brilliant. How you doing?
You are brilliant. If for the listeners out there, this is my long-term, but I met Ithan 10 years ago. I definitely don't want to date ourselves, even though we're not that old. But so glad to have you here on Women in Linux podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. It was my pleasure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Ithan, this podcast is basically, here at Women in Linux, we give our listeners a 360 view of tech. And with that being said, what brings you here is that you are a graphic designer. And I don't want to say by trade. You can probably give us a better definition of that. But if you want to
I'm a visual artist that uses digital software to be creative. That's brand focus.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about your background and how you got into the visual arts?
Well, my background, I'm actually a trained accountant. I learned accounting very, very long time ago, and I was actually in between jobs, and I saw Cirque du Soleil setting up in Atlanta. Long story short, I started working with Cirque du Soleil, and I actually really opened up a creative side to me. I saw creative professionals, those acrobats and people who work in the circus, like real super, super creative kids, 18, 20, young kids, my age. I saw them being like mad creative, but yet professional, and making a lot of money at it. And I was like, well, I can't, I'm not going to be a trapeze artist or anything like that, but I want to paint. I want to do, be visually, that's what I want to do. I want to do visual work, and I can be creative, and I can try to make money off of it. So I started painting. This is the early days of Atlanta.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. Remember back,
that's the basement.
Yeah, that was the basement. Cascade Lane.
Yeah.
But before the basement, I had started doing graphics to make T-shirts. I was selling them at a little shop in Rio Mall. That's old school Atlanta. If y'all don't know about Rio Mall, it's where the Publix is, right there, the corner of North Avenue and Ponce. So I needed to learn how to use a computer in order to make the graphics come out better, or to actually speed the process up, because I figured out how to do it without using a computer.
Right.
Those were the days when I was vegan, and my whole mindset. That was before anybody knew what being vegan was.
Right. You was nuts and berries.
My whole nuts. I was bark and leaves. Okay. I wish that was nuts and berries. I was bark. I was like, I am a non-computer creative person. I don't need a computer to help me be an artist.
Right.
And all of that. I didn't. And then one day, I remember this chick, Pamela Waller, at Kinko's, said to me, this would be a lot easier if you use a computer.
This is the Kinko's, where they knew all things.
Exactly. And this back in the day when Kinko's was like the thing.
It was the lab. Like everybody's at Kinko's. Kinko's was cracking.
Yeah. If you were an entrepreneur, you was at Kinko's. I had access to some, let's say, mm, extracurricular income.
Okay.
So, I was able to be able to buy a computer,
Mm-hmm.
and in my, let's see, urban entrepreneurial time, you know,
It was Atlanta.
I, yeah, I was learning I taught myself how to do graphics, you know, and I was going to Kinko's all the time now to get stuff printed out because then printers were really expensive.
And what was the
And
program where did you learn on?
back then,
Yeah.
Fractal Painter. I dibbled and dabbled in Corel Draw, but I hated it.
Uh-huh.
This is when it had Quark.
I
If
remember
you,
those.
yeah. So it was crazy. That was where I taught myself and I taught myself. I didn't go to school for graphic design.
Right.
I was doing computer graphics and I was doing actual paintings at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually developed myself as, visually, painting and computers simultaneously. Never realized that till this moment.
Gems for yourself. Self-discovery on the Women in Linux
That's,
podcast. Isn't that crazy when you hear your own story?
I know, right? I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this. So I was going to Kinko so often
Mm-hmm.
that I was getting really familiar with using the Photoshop software in order to print stuff out, and just create other things. And this was in the days when, you had a little Kinko's card, you go and put money on it and you could print out and use a computer and all that other stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And, if you knew somebody behind the counter, they give you a hookup, they put extra time on your card or
And
you're like,
you knew
oh,
somebody. You knew somebody at the camp.
right.
You did.
Well, I was going to Kinko's and I had my urban entrepreneurial,
Mm-hmm.
businesses. So, I had clients that worked at Kinko. So, it made it quite easy.
Even swap no swindle. Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
So one day, Jason Padgett, the computers department guy, because this is when Kinko's actually had customer service people that actually help you with stuff.
The early days,
not
yeah.
nowadays. He would see me all the time and ask me, hey, do you want a job? I was like, no. Why do I need a job? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine. Trust me. Don't you owe me money as we're talking here? I have my own time. I'm cool. I'm comfortable.
Right.
And then another time he asked me again. I was like, dude, nah, I'm good. I'm straight. And then the third time he asked me, before I said no, he said, I will teach you Photoshop.
Really?
I was like, okay. I was like, that's fine. All right. Yeah, sure. I'll take the job. And because also, too, I had been in this so much, I knew the systems. I knew how to talk to people. You know me. I'm a pretty friendly guy.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in there for hours on end. I would actually have that as a satellite office, so that way I'm in Kinko's and somebody needed to reach me, I'll be in Kinko's.
My office, yeah. They're like,
exactly.
You might as well get paid to sit in here, buddy.
Right. And I'm like, I'll meet you downstairs and, be cool and go back upstairs and go back. And they were like, why don't you work here? And I'm like, dude, you gotta realize what I do. And y'all want me to just like, y'all gonna give me a check for this and teach me something. Why not?
Bet winner. Yes.
Yeah, I started working at Kinko's.
Wow.
And my job was work in the computer services department when people and the design department. And he showed me the basic fundamentals of how to build a business card. in
Wow.
Photoshop, and basically using the fundamentals of Adobe. One thing that all you young techies out there coming up will realize that the reason why Adobe is so big and so dominant is because they have the same ecosystem for all their software.
Wow.
I
didn't even know that.
Yeah, the same keystrokes and everything that you would use in Photoshop are the same keystrokes and everything that you use in Illustrator and every Adobe product.
Man.
So once he showed me the fundamentals of Adobe, the keystroke system, it opened up all these other softwares for me.
Right.
And I'm getting taught or getting paid to learn how to do basic fundamental layout.
At the Kinko's.
At Kinko's. So, and I'm getting a check. And I'm still entrepreneurial.
Right.
So, Kinko's is going all right. The managers don't really like me because, no. Everything is cool. Everything is cool because we had Lisa was the general manager. Everything was cool. Everybody knew their place. Everybody knew who to what. It was a nice little family. This went on for about a good 6-7 months. It was cool. Like them sitcoms. Like real cool. Everybody chill. They knew that I'm not gonna come over there and try and mess with the copy center and do all of that stuff. They knew that.
It's on lock.
Ethan, if there's a good looking woman that needs help in the computer department, Ethan's the guy to call. Don't call me for nobody else.
That's
if it's
a shame.
Dude, I will ask him a question and I'm sending him over to you. If you see me talking to him, know that I'm sending him to you.
That's a shame.
The ladies, I got them. I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it. And I had, came from a corporate background.
Right.
So the Kinko's uniform back then was a button-up shirt, collared button-up shirt, khaki slacks, white shirt, nice, semi-corporate type shit. So I was when we get paid, I didn't really need the Kinko's check, I would take extra money and I would like, give me some more shirts, give me some more Kinko shirts. So I had a shirt for every day of the week. I had 3 different pairs of Kinko slacks, and I would get them dry cleaned. I'm like, what? Why y'all got to? Y'all don't want to walk around here looking sloppy. You know what I mean?
You was a crispy professional. You were management at Kinko's.
Yeah, folks thought I was a manager. I was like, nah, I ain't a manager. Had a little $25 ties, straight. Remember Eddie Murphy and Boomerang?
Yes.
Yeah, that was me, Marcus.
With the trench coat on at the Kinko's, a mess. I didn't know your Kinko's days. I didn't know your Kinko's.
Nah.
No. So
Kinko's
this is new for me too. This is a treat. You're listening to Women in Linux.
Kinko's was 90. Was right before the Olympics.
Oh, okay. About 95.
So, yeah. Everything's going, like ice. And what really made a difference in me pursuing graphics was when DJ Nab's manager, Elliot Lloyd, came in and needed a flyer done. Wow. I was like, well, yeah, I could do a flyer. And he had showed me some other rudimentary flyer that somebody else did. He's like, yeah, kind of like this, the person's name. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm being creative and, trying to make it look hot and different and things like that. Because remember, I've been painting.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, okay, cool, I could look at it differently, And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool, And And I printed it out on some regular paper. And then he came back the next week. He's like, yo, the computer manager came out and said, yo, this cat was looking for you. He said, call him when you get in. I called him up. He came in. I want you to do this. Do me another flyer. You know what I mean? I did another flyer for him. You know what I mean? And he was like, all right, yeah, this is good. Loving it. I'll be back. Came back a third time, another week. And he was like, yo, I'm going to turn you on to something. He was like, there's a company out in LA called A&A Printing. When I get the flyers, the reason why I don't get y'all to print out the flyers because I can send it to them and they'll print it out and they'll ship it back, on Delta Dash. Y'all see, Delta Dash is old school.
Infamous at the Delta Dash. That was an extra with the Delta Dash.
Man. So he was like, this is what you do. Here's a phone number. I'm like, word? He's like, yeah. So I called the printer up. They're like, yeah, here are our file specs. This is what it costs. You know what I mean? Send us a file when you're ready. I'm like, oh, okay. He comes back in again next week. I was like, yeah, I called him up. I said, woo. He's like, all right, cool. Here's what I'm going to do for you. Put your name and phone number on the bottom of the flyer. Put design by on the bottom of the flyer. And I was like, all right, bet. And from that point on, it was over. I mean, people start calling me up. Yo, you do flyers? Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I was doing that on the side at home, when I was not working at Kinko's. And then one day, Kinko's was started to be bought out by FedEx when that whole, movement came about. Not FedEx, but there was another company because the reason why I was called Kinko's is because a little white boy with a fro, because his hair was kinky, started a copy center and they called it Kinko's.
Fun fact.
Because his hair was kinky. Yeah, for real though.
Fun fact.
So I think it was the first or second iteration of the company being bought out or investors coming in. And they wanted to get more discipline and, and they brought in this little short white chick, you know what I mean? And she disrupted the whole flow of everything,
right?
And, she started making me, I was like, well, you're going to have to get, everybody now, they had this thing where people have to be certified on different machines and stuff like that. And it was like, no.
You start making it work, huh?
Yeah, I was like, dude, I don't need to be certified on how to use that machine. I don't even touch that machine. That's not for me. You know what I mean? I don't care if somebody doesn't know how to use that machine. I'll ask somebody else. If somebody else in here will, because they got to be certified. I don't have to be certified. So they fired me. Long story short,
I got the boot. I got the boot from Kinko's.
They fired me on December 24th.
So this is the day.
No, December 26th. I used it before or after Christmas. I remember it was right around Christmas. And I thought, and by this point, you know what I mean, my design business and my clients were picking up to the point where Kinko's was slowing me down.
Okay.
But I've never quit a job. You know what I mean? And I've never really got fired. It's just like, what do I do? You know what I mean? So I'm sitting in the office and Lisa's sitting back there looking at me like, yeah, you knew this time was coming. I can't say nothing. And the little manager's kind of mad and just looking at me. She's like, yeah, we're going to have to let you go. And boss said, woo. I thought I was going to get written up or, something like that. When they said
no
they were going to fire me.
She was waiting.
They let me go.
She was waiting.
Yeah.
She was waiting.
But when they said that, Dion, I sat there and cried. But
really?
I cried. I was happy as shit. It was literally, I've never had tears of joy in my life. And I was crying. I was like, thank you so much. Oh my God, thank you. Oh, thank you. He looked at me like, are you crazy?
Just
And
not.
Lisa knew what time it was. She was like, yeah, okay, this motherfucker's going crazy now. And that was literally the last time I actually punched the clock for somebody.
Wow.
In 90. So I left there, and now I had full time to really ramp up my, design business and, becoming iDesign, and it just went bananas. People will call because nobody had seen like flyers like that before.
No.
I was being a little bit more. I was focusing on the image and trying to find crazy images and unique images to tell the story. People were just putting information on there. I was actually trying to actually tell a visual story. So yeah, I mean, and it got to the point where I stopped. I stopped my other entrepreneurial activity. I was like,
because you had a new business. You had a new, like iDesign was birthed. And I want everybody to really, like, this moment, listening to your story, it is where opportunity, network, and hustle intersects.
Definitely. I tell people what they say, what's the difference between being a hustler and an entrepreneur? When you're a hustler, you're just trying to make it. When you're an entrepreneur is when you actually have a plan. Right. Where you know where you're going and this is all going for something. When I stopped hustling and I had a plan that, yeah, I'm going to be a graphic designer. I'm going to be creative. I did not know where it would be. I did not think of what I wanted to be 10 years from now. All I knew is that at this moment in time, that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this more than anything else in the world. And when you get that drive and you feel that about something, really don't listen to nobody else though.
Yeah.
Listen to that. Because if you deny yourself that, you regret that. You could be a rich, you could have all the money in the world, all the success in the world. But if it's not how you always wanted it to be, you always still chase that one little dream. You know what I mean? That's why you see, big corporate people blow up and have big C-suite jobs and, CEO, PhD, director, this, that, and that. And when they'll just up and quit and go and start a bakery making cupcakes. Yeah. Because that's what they've always wanted to do.
You're listening to Women in Linux. At this point in time, I think this is where our stories intersect because a mutual friend of ours, we had started a business together and it was Urban Cowgirls Promotions. And you did our first brand. We had a whole photo shoot, the business cards, the whole 9 yards. And I think our friendship kind of bloomed from there. That basement, I spent a lot of time in that basement getting work done and actually getting work for a lot of my clients at the time done through you. So it was basically a magical time. So I know as far as like from that time we met in the late 90s to where it started from. And, since you got started in graphic design, what has changed?
Well, see, in the late 90s, I was one of very few. There's only about 4 or 5 of us, if that, white and black. It was myself and a cat named Precise.
I remember.
Who were pretty much the only 2 black, urban designers out here. And at that point in time, graphic design was such a specialized skill. And there weren't a whole lot of, African Americans doing it, and doing it on a freelance level. And also at that time, Atlanta was growing. The entertainment industry was growing, and being creative was everybody had their own little niche,
Right.
and being expressive about what they do, and everybody was celebrating each other. Over the years, as with everything else, as which, Taja testified to, it with doing beats and being an engineer, to you with doing promotions,
The music industry in
that,
Atlanta, it was like booming. It was starting to take off in Atlanta at that time.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of opportunity, but now it's become oversaturated. You know, I tell people on the low that I'm the one who made it viable for a lot of African American young men out here to want to pursue graphic design. You know what I mean? And get into street promotions and street graphics, because I showed the way that you could make money at this.
You sure did.
That it was an industry. People were like, oh man, oh, but now you've got cats in school at the Art Institute who are going to school for that.
Right.
To learn how to do, promotional design, how to do, getting into visual communication classes, because they see that, yeah, it is a viable industry. So how it's changed is that I don't want to say it's been too commercialized, but it's like going to a hookah bar. I remember when I was in London, and that was the first time I actually saw people doing hookah. And it was, everybody was cool with it. It was like, all right, cool. It's a cool little trend. When I came, and you're in Atlanta now, it's like, really? This is a church. Why is there hookahs in the church?
Like, it's way too much. So do you think that technology, I know you said it was it got oversaturated, but do you think that saturation was caused by technology, the access, or what did you think what made the change, brought about that change?
I mean, technology made it easier for people to dip their toe in and think they could do something. And then once they've dipped their toe in, then the people who actually do have a creative ability will naturally move on to more advanced programs. So with Instagram allowing people to post pictures, then that technology drove the advent of the Instagram flyer design. To where that there's one cat who just, all they do is just design flyers for Instagram, and they charge $50. So that has affected the industry, but yet you can't deny technology for being there to do what it do. I mean, it's chicken and egg situation. And it's not even so much of which came first, but they both need each other.
Right.
Technology drives innovation. Innovation drives change. It is upon you, the creative, the entrepreneur in that particular sector, to understand how you can stay at the forefront of what that change that technology is bringing. I've I'm seeing Instagram feeds and, different ways of posting and figuring out, okay, how's that
and
done?
Your stories.
So, yeah, stories. So instead of me, being, dismissive of technology, I'm like, oh, well, I go down to a Facebook, immersive class, and I learn how to utilize those different technologies to be more creative. So you can't blame technology. It is what it is. It's like blaming the road for people driving faster or people driving crazy.
It's just
It is what it
evolution.
is.
It's just
Yeah, it's just
evolution.
evolution.
You're listening to Women in Linux. So you've mentioned something about being a visual artist. Now, what's the difference in the visual arts? What's the difference between being a graphic designer and in digital design?
A graphic designer, now, I'm sure if you go to some academic, at the Art Institute or Creative Circus or whatever, they
Right.
can give you a very mechanical definition of what it is and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Being a self-taught designer and interacting with other people who utilize a digital platform to make visual communication pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I worded that specifically that way. There are people who are a graphic designer is somebody who you say, okay, cool, I need an elephant holding a leaf, and they will give you an elephant holding a leaf. Now
Mm-hmm.
different variances of this. Some people will give it to you in a very flat, spot color, kind of thing. Some people will give it to you as an illustration. Some people go out and cut together, pictures and make you an elephant. And that's what they're tasked to do. A graphic designer is someone who is tasked to do a duty, to create a visual image. Digital design is more of a mechanical, in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
of that same definition, whereas they're doing that image manipulation work with it using a digital platform, which is inside a computer. Me, considering myself as a visual designer or a visual artist, is that I don't necessarily need a computer or a digital platform to be creative. And the imagery that I do create in a digital platform is based on art, not so much a strategy or not the strategy, not the word I want to use, but
More a technicality, perhaps it
yeah,
going into the computer and it generating something
yeah,
as far as an image.
yeah. I could send you a piece I just finished doing. You can look at my portfolio. Like, I look at it as art that is used to sell and communicate a brand's emotion. So that's what I consider what I do.
Right.
I'm not going in and creating, just here, you wanted some words laid out on a page. Okay, sure. I'll mechanically justify it the right way. I'll make sure it's a 12-point auto, everything,
Yeah. Your
uh,
visual aesthetic goes deeper than that. And I think that's what it
right.
comes with the art of it. You being a painter and a creative, it
Mm-hmm.
goes into that. I definitely understand that. You're listening to Women in Linux. Now, I know for us being in technology and looking at a lot of job opportunities and kind of dissecting job descriptions, technology as it evolves has a habit of making a lot of hybrid roles. So as a graphic designer, you have to be in digital design. How have you bridged that gap between the two? Because in being a working graphic designer, technology dictates that some of these things are needed when you bridge the two. So you may do graphic design, but you may do websites as well. How do you bridge that?
Um, I look at it all as a project.
Mm-hmm.
My clients who hire me know that they're hiring me as a creative director, and they're going to let me take full creative control of how I see the, visually should look. But I also, as a trained accountant, understand that visual creation, that artwork, has to make money.
Right.
That's where you could, being an entrepreneur comes in to being a visual artist, where you realize at the end of the day you have a job to do. So that's how I look at being a visual artist. And then as far as digital, with digital, knowing that, okay, cool, I have to create a key art that's going to have to go onto Instagram, Eventbrite, Facebook cover, et cetera, as well as build out a website to support that brand identity. It's the happy marriage of art and money.
Right. Because it could, in your mind, and your vision could be like definitely what you want it to be. Like, oh, I want all these details. And I've learned in my creative experience in marketing career, that, how does that brand translate onto other items? For instance, if you have a logo, how does that can you put that on a mug? Does that artwork, can you put that on a notepad? Like, how many colors do you need? And, a lot of people, when they talk to me and they have ideas, I start breaking those ideas down into those monetary categories. And I know it can get frustrating, but it's based on my experience. This is what we have to look at when we're creating these brands, because it can get expensive when you have a 5-color logo and you're trying to print some t-shirts.
Right, and you have to take that into, and that's part of the brief that I have to take into consideration when beginning the identity development process. Is like, okay, what are you? You know what I mean? Are you a restaurant or you're a beauty salon? If you're a restaurant, then yeah, I know that your logo has to be more versatile, because you can only put it so many places. You're gonna have to have uniforms. You're gonna have to have an outside signing, awning, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a beauty salon, then yeah, you could go with a little more frill in your logo, because the items and the usage of it is not going to be that intensive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it is just a beauty salon. So those are the things that you definitely have to think about and take into consideration. And that is the sweet, creative challenge of what I do, is being able to understand the mechanics of how this logo is going to work, but yet still making it creative and clever, because it still has to be brandable. It can mechanically work, but it's just you can't do anything with it. It's not unique. There's nothing really special about it. It doesn't really speak to what it is that I do. So there is a fine line, and that's really what I love about what I do, is being able to do that. Quick story, I just met a young 20-year-old Venezuelan millionaire, graphic designer, kind of like me, you know what I mean? Self-taught, came up, and, he has a particular style. He's very, 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 very minimalist in his aesthetic appeal. And, he's like, oh man, see, this is how it needs to be done. I'm like, dude, relax.
Right.
I could do, it's all per the client. Now here, boom, boom, oh, you can't, yeah, I could do whatever, but it's all what the client wants. But, he thinks that all his imagery should have the same style. It should have the same look, and that's where you mess up as an artist, in being the entrepreneurial side of it, that you can't give everything the same look.
Right.
You can't just come, everything, you're not a hammer and everything's not a nail.
You're listening to Women in Linux. What's so funny when you're talking about the 20-year-old, I remember we used to have those arguments back and forth when it came to clients, and you used to be like in your zone and going to how creative, and you were a creative director back then and how it should look. And I used to be like, dude, they don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want that. That's not what the client wants. Like, let's give the client what he wants. And if they come back and ask us, and then I'm going to make sure that I look out for those opportunities. But that's so important. Like, at the end of the day, as much as you want to put your spin on it and the client looks to you to be the expert when it comes to the final product, they really want what they want.
Yeah, they want what they want.
They want for they want. They have a vision of how they want it to look in their head, and sometimes you just have to say that's not going to work. But we're going to give you the best possible outcome for that vision and try to bring that to life. With that being said, you mentioned Instagram and Facebook and all of this other stuff. Has the internet changed the way you find inspiration for your work, or because I know you personally, are you still a nature type of guy because you are an outside ocean man?
The internet inspiration, yes and no. It shows me what other people are doing, what other trends are going on. It gives me a wider view, a field of what other creators are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So me being in nature and that kind of aesthetic, that's to keep my basic foundation fundamentals sound.
Mm.
One of the things that people, I use nature as a ruler because when I could go back, if I had those files, I could go back and visually show you when I learned fundamentals, and it started when I started reading Details magazine, and a lot of high-end, because you remember when you would come to the office, the house, I had that upstairs library. I had a freaking library.
You had a whole situation. Your living space was totally different than your creative space.
Yeah, and I had a library of magazines that I would go through and just read and study high-end, European fashion magazine, because there was a certain a visual. I knew what I did. I'm a visual creative person. I create imagery, so I looked at imagery, and just studied imagery and just how it was laid out, and just spacing, and this feels good, and I just mimicked what felt good, because that's the thing that you always used to say. Your eye knows what is right, but it knows quicker what's wrong. You'll always spot that one error real quick, and I will always go back to it. So my thing was to find imagery that never gave you that feeling, that when you looked at it, your eyes were relaxed. It actually, you were like, So I started finding imagery like that and copying it.
Right.
Now with the internet, it gives me a wider variety of imagery to look at, and not so much copy it, but to see, because I have the fundamentals of layout down, but just to see what other people are doing, and seeing what other, and then learning new softwares, and being able to access, better stock images.
Right.
There's like now, before I remember having to have a vector magic program. Like I had a vectorizing software I
Right.
thought it was like the best thing in the world. But
Like I
I
got it.
lost
I
it.
got that stuff. Like, and it was expensive.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
expensive, like, and it put you ahead of the game. Like I remember those moments, like, oh, I just got this, and it made your job easier, but it gave you an advantage over
Yeah, it gave
the
you a marked
competition.
advantage. Yeah.
Right.
If people be like, and you can say, yeah, I could do that, and then people call you, if he got that software, he could do that. And but now, everything is online.
It's a subscription.
I vectorize a file online. You know what I mean? 2 minutes.
Now I know you're in Miami, and I know they have all the art shows. Is there anyone like any favorite bodies of work that you are following? Anyone that you are like, you gotta go and check out this work?
I follow this guy on Instagram. He's here in Miami called Alec Monopoly. And he draws Richie Rich, just he's like a satire of ostentatious wealth. You know what I mean? But
Is he
yet
an illustrator?
no, he's a street artist. He graffiti, spray paint.
Oh, okay.
ALEC Monopoly, like the game. ALEC Monopoly. But yet he lives the life that he paints about. Jet setting
Really?
around the world, hanging out with top millionaires. Got a collection with the Beverly Hills Hotel. Like one of his things that he had a teaching graffiti illustrator teaching class at the garden of the Beverly Hills Hotel for $200 a pop per kid. Philip Plain, the billionaire, the guy who has a billionaire store, that's his boy.
Ah.
You know what I mean? Hanging out like that. So he lives the lifestyle that he paints about,
Right.
in satire, and that's crazy. I mean, he shows paintings where he'll take a canvas, an easy, 40 by 60 canvas, and cover it with brand new bluebills. You know what I mean? Put down all of it, the whole thing, one by one, line them all up, just not but blue faces, and then put lacquer all over it and seal them in the painting, and then paint on top of that.
And blue faces is money for people that didn't catch it.
Yeah, $100 bills.
$100 bills. That's crazy. And that's a huge canvas.
Yeah, he does it all. I mean, bunch of them, And he just blew up through Art Basel and just knowing the right people and just being cool about it, But I follow him. But another, like more of a serious, more refined, fine artist, not like Alec isn't, but in the more of a...
There is a difference between what they consider fine art and street art. And so...
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
His name is Cy Gavin.
Mm-hmm.
CYGAVIN. Cy Gavin. If you know the story of the Burrells, and they were the ones who backed Basquiat when Warhol brought him to him. The Burrells consider Cy the next Basquiat. I met him at the Perez Art Museum one day, just hanging out, and just cool dude.
Clueless who he was. Just chilling.
Clueless. You know what I mean? We got to talk about smoking, and I was like, I live right across the street. Yeah, I got some shit come through. And then he started, telling me, about what he do. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm like, and he's name dropping, and I'm like, okay, that's dope. And then I really got to see some of his work, and following him over the last year or so, and seeing where he's at, shows at the Met, galleries in Paris, big cat doing big things, but real cool brother, just chilling him in his Porsche,
Just Florida living. I love Florida.
Yeah, he's back up in New York now, but yeah, I met him while I was here in Florida. But no, those are the cats that I follow. I'm trying to develop something here in Miami, so.
Now, quick question. No, are you still painting?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't in a while, but yes. And here's the crazy part. There's an art supply store in my building.
Really?
Yep. There's an art supply store in the framer. There's a gallery on the corner.
Giving you all these signals. The universe is speaking with you.
Yeah.
To pick it back up.
I just actually have a den, and I actually just turned it into a gallery. I just hung up some of my paintings I hadn't had up in a long time. So one of the things I'm going to be doing for 2019 is getting my profile up and having little receptions around town. I am going to be doing some shows, but I am doing now the art of the brand, where I'm taking a lot of my past work and going through and stripping out, some of the extraneous, unnecessary copy. That's just, the date and all that stuff. And just leaving pretty much the main base artwork and doing shows with those.
That'd be so dope. Because just knowing your body of work, you've worked with Outkast as far as urban music and hip hop. You work with Outkast. You've worked with Too Short, Alvin. Between a showing of just album covers and logos alone, so dope. Yeah, they wouldn't even know the man behind the brands.
Everybody's saying, you can do it in Atlanta. I don't want to do it in Atlanta.
No, Miami's. I don't think they would appreciate it. They're not ready for it in Atlanta. No.
They're just like, oh yeah, remember Ethan?
Right.
Oh yeah, you did that show the other night. Oh yeah, how was? Yeah, bye. Here, but see, I'm doing it differently here in Miami. I'm being extremely, extremely selective about the clients that I'm choosing. Either pure vanity or civic. Civic arts and culture. So I just put a 20-foot billboard on the side of the Black Archives Historic Lyrical Theater in Overtown, inside of Historic Overtown. That's one of the pieces I'm going to do for Art of the Brand. But, with that, I'm trying to leverage that out as an urban identity specialist, because there's a lot of people around, but most of not most, but 99.9% of my client base is, urban identity.
Right.
And I'm damn good at it. I know how to bridge that corporate look with that nice pop that urban, culture has. That flavor, as they like to say. My man, give me that flavor.
Plenty Island flavor. You're listening to Women in Linux.
So when it comes down to like traditional mediums and digital mediums, how do you take those mediums and mesh them together, or do you not take those mediums and mesh them together? Like, is that something that's a challenge for you, or is that something that's easy for you? And also, when you see that, what's your reaction whenever you see that on somebody else's art of work or body of work, I should say?
Well, with art, with me getting, continue to do paintings, I'm going to explore using the digital medium with traditional ink and paint, where I will print a base image and then use that to paint on top of it. A lot of painters, a lot of more pop art, visual artists have been going that route now. In a way, it's cheating, I actually think. It's almost like paint by numbers. But, art is art, and if that's how you get at it, that's how you get at it. How they mix in my life outside of being a visual artist in the business side is that digital, to me, that's your Instagram, your e-flyer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's great and all, but it McDonaldizes the visual arts too much, where it's online, it's not real. What I try and do is still maintain a strong print discipline, where I would see if I could get the client to want to get this particular piece printed, so that way, it's printed. Print is more tactile. It feels when you hold something in your hand, it communicates a lot stronger than when you see it on a screen for a few seconds. That piece, that promotional piece, magazine, whatever it may be, could sit on your nightstand, your coffee table, your dashboard, the floor of your car for 3 weeks. How many impressions is that? That's how I see the two kind of not bumping heads, but in competition with each other. I don't see competition. One of the things that I'm doing with the South Florida people of color is their Black History Month. So what they've had me do is I'm doing the key art, but I'm also creating the exhibit for that particular function. So now I'm going to, the artwork, I created digitally, but I'm going to also interpret that with print and use print to interpret the whole communications. So, but that's because I've taken my time to actually learn both sides. One of the things I was talking to the little Venezuelan cat about, I was like, he's like, oh yeah, everything is digital. We don't do, we don't really do print that much and all this. I was like, dude, you're a CBD company. You're a liquor brand. I'm sure your online sales are fantastic. Well, yeah, we do like, well, I was like, then, you need to give your customers something tactile to experience. Looking at something is looking at something. That's not experiencing it. Actually holding that printed matter in your hand, that's experiencing it. As dumbed down as it may be, it's still an experience. To answer the question, digital is, you see it, when it's actual traditional, you can experience it better.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to figure out, what do I want to do with all the pictures in all of my phones? Like, I literally want to just sit in Walgreens and have them print out everything and make myself photo albums.
You got an app for that.
Well, hey, now I know that there's an app for that where I want my photos delivered. I miss that. going to Walgreens and like getting all my film developed and giving friends photos. That used to be so cool.
I mean, you do realize that Polaroid is actually coming back.
I had one
I
new
mean,
one for every Christmas. My mom used to buy me Polaroids.
that's the same thing like, people going out and buying vinyl turntables. They're Japanese companies who are making mint off of creating, or recreating vintage turntables, selling them like right now. You try and go online and buy you a Pioneer turntable. It's almost $800-900.
It's crazy. That's crazy. But people want that old thing back. Like we always we talk about here we talk about in the infrastructure space when it comes to automation and the cloud, and how some folks, the cloud thinks this is like the cloud is some untouchable thing, but at the end of the day there are still servers sitting in a room somewhere, which is the cloud. That doesn't make those jobs obsolete. Like, you need it. Definitely.
Right. The cloud is still
it's a
piece
server.
of hardware.
It's a hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like, come on. But again, those big businesses, they market to where it's just like, oh, you don't need that. Skip all of these steps in the middle and shoot straight up to the top. And that's definitely so not the case. So you've been talking about like basically your escapades in the business world. What are some of the challenges you face as a solopreneur?
Other solopreneurs. That really is the biggest challenge of being a solopreneur is other solopreneurs. Everybody who wants to be your client, but can't or won't or don't understand how to afford you.
Right.
Or how to utilize your services in a way that, okay, you feel like your time is being well spent. Other solopreneurs have to understand that, yeah, I'm trying to make money too. And I understand that you ain't got no money. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you gotta give me a little bit of what you got.
Right.
Because you don't get it, the fact that you're coming to me talking about, oh, I'm trying to open up a restaurant, but I only got but so much money. Could you hook me up? You know what I mean? How would you like it if a customer came into your restaurant, I'm like, yo, I want some chicken wings. I know you got 4 for $1, but I got 50 cents, so just give me 2.
Right.
But it's like 4 for $1. We just gonna give you 2 chicken wings.
Right.
But come on, man. I'm trying to get by. It's like, that is the hardest part. And the coolest thing that somebody ever said was, it costs money to be in business.
It does. You have to have a marketing budget. If it's not, you won't, especially with restaurants, with most businesses, you won't be in business for long.
Yeah, people put their money on the wrong end of it.
Yeah.
You have to have, especially if you're looking for longevity.
You have to create your demand. McDonald's still run commercials. Burger King still run commercials. Wendy's, she still runs commercials.
Coca-Cola is the largest ad buyer in the world and has been for the last 50 years and will always be the largest ad buyer in the world. And they make the most money of anybody in the world.
It was just that World of Coke in Orlando. They got a whole little situation. You can go taste thousands of sodas, buy all their merchandise, socks, slippers, overalls, onesies, anything Coke can put their name on, they do.
That's probably my Instagram post for tomorrow. If you keep advertising, you always have customers.
You're listening to Women in Linux. For up-and-coming designers, what are the soft and hard skills you think that's needed to be a graphic designer, to be a successful graphic designer? Because I know some not-so-successful graphic designers.
Hard skills? know your software, know how to technically work your computer. You know, soft skills as far as your thoughts and your brain working. Understand that you have to be creative for this to work. There's a difference between being a graphic designer and a desktop publisher.
Right.
Know which one you are.
Right.
There's rules and fundamentals about design. No matter how you do it, there are rules and fundamentals about design. You could be as creative, you can do whatever you want, you can have whatever style that you need. You know what I mean? There are rules. There are things about balance. There's structural rules. There are color rules. There are font rules. There are image rules. Know your rules. Because if you don't, other designers could tell, and your client won't come back because they look whack, and you're gonna be trying to figure out why. And you think, oh well, it looks good. It looks good to me, but yeah, I mean, you don't know the rules. That's what I would say. And
All right.
also, lastly, if you're gonna be creative, understand that it's your job to be creative. There's no such thing as being creative as doing what everybody else does. Copying somebody else is not being creative.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Now, from a graphic school dropout, I mean, I had one semester at Creative Circus, and I thought I was going to be like learning Photoshop and Illustrator, and that wasn't even till like the second year, second, third semester. And you, as a self-taught graphic designer, do you recommend any graphic schools? Because I know you definitely know the fundamentals in that, or do you recommend just going at it on your own if you are a creative person?
You know what? That's a hard question. It really is. It all depends on the person. Because there's some people who will go to a creative school and learn how to design,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are people who will go to a creative school and learn, how to be creative.
Or manage the creatives. A lot of my
Right.
colleagues at that time, when I look on LinkedIn, they are in management positions. They're not necessarily in visual arts to say they are the designer.
I mean, it all depends on where you are personally with your career and your own
Mm-hmm.
personal skill set. Um, Christ, sorry.
No worries.
Where you are in your own personal skill set
Mm-hmm.
and what your end goal is. There's some people who can do it, but is that the end goal? To really be a graphic designer, or they're just doing it because it's gonna make them some money.
Right.
That's it. It all depends. If that's what you're doing, it because you're gonna make you some money, then yeah, go to school.
Go to school
You
to
know
get
what
a
I mean?
job.
Yeah, because you're gonna get a job.
Because you're going to get a
You
job.
know.
Because what was fascinating to me is that a lot of colleagues that I went to school with, they had just graduated from a 4-year college. So they were young, and here I was like in my 30s going to graphic design school, and we're literally, my first class, we are literally making a poster out of shades of gray and white. And I'm like, you guys just graduated from college and now you're going to school for 2 years to a post-secondary college? I couldn't believe
Well,
it. It was crazy to me. It was definitely crazy to me. But again, most of
because
those
it was
people are now are like in management or like a creative, not director, but they're in some like project management type of situation.
head of marketing or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. where it's about the numbers and the analyticals of being creative, and they went to school because they could at least recognize good creatives. But you know what I mean?
Teach his own.
Again, yeah, it's all what you want to do with your life, and what your calling and your passion is. There are times when, yeah, I do look to go back to school to not to learn design, but to learn the business of design.
No. Oh,
You
okay.
know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because it's big business. Visual arts is a big business. Now, with that said, do you and you keep touching on the fundamentals of graphic design is very, very important. Do you recommend any books or websites or podcasts for studying graphic design?
No, open your eyes, look at everything. You know, look at everything and mimic. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any books, if you have Adobe Suites, which you should have, you know, they have tutorials inside the program. You know,
And they have
yeah,
discounted rates for students. It's the online suite version.
yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, that's what I would suggest. Go to the program and look at the tutorials that the programs are actually putting out. Helps you get a better understanding of actually what that program can do. And then there's sometimes, YouTube videos if it's something that you specifically want to learn how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm teaching myself video editing, so
Me too. I'm
I'm
doing that.
I'm going. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm self-taught. I can put it,
Yeah.
I'm self-taught. I'm trying my best, but I'm following your advice. I go to the YouTube. Google is my friend. She knows all
Oh
things to
yeah.
Google, and whatever I need and whatever keywords I put in, she brings back something of use. And if it's not what I need, I keep on using it. I
Mm.
go back to it. You're listening to Women in Linux. So we are wrapping up here, and as the urban brand identity specialist you are, this is our time for our shameless plug. You can give us your website, your links, your upcoming projects. What would you like to see next? Your mad rant, any of that good stuff. This is your time.
I won't take too much of it. My website, Ethan Payne Creative, however you want to spell it. I actually went out and bought both Ethan with an I and Ethan with a T, just to hedge my bets.
His is an I for the people.
Yeah,
Is
if you
every
really want to take, it's Ethan. If
I
you trying to spell it, Ethan Payne.
and now is everything all your social at Ethan Payne Creative?
Yep.
All right, so that's IG, Facebook, the Twitter. You can find him at
Yep.
ethanpaynecreative.com.
And I have links on my website to take you all my social. You
Awesome.
can see a quick overview of my work. You know,
Which is pretty dope
my
to say the least, but I might be like impartial because I've known this fella for a very long time. But it's dope.
yeah, man. Appreciate it.
It's dope. I can't lie. I am going to stay on his neck about putting his gallery show. And if you need any assistance from me, you know where to find me. I am just a phone call and a text away.
I want
Thank
to
you.
do one in LA.
That'd be pretty dope. I think LA would appreciate something like that. Even a Vegas, like one of those nice hotels in Vegas, appreciate something like that. Definitely Miami and New York
And San Francisco.
and San
because
Fran.
because a bunch of the stuff that I will be in there will be stuff that I did with Terry Vaughn, Kagling's Foundation. So
Yeah,
yeah.
It'd be dope.
That would be
I
dope.
want to see
love
that. We're going to speak that in. We're speaking that into existence for 2019. Now, can the listeners ask you any questions when they hit you up? Can they slide in your DMs and ask any questions, or don't do it?
No, they can slide in my DM. Holler at me, ask me anything, you know.
You
I'll
are
answer
taking
your
new
question.
clients.
I am taking new clients.
The door is open.
Door is always open for new clients. If you're ready to build a brand, build an identity, really have a comprehensive professional look that will last you quite a while, then yeah, I am your guy. And this is it's my passion, it's my career.
Thank you so much, Ithan, for joining us. I look forward to having you back.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women in Linux podcast. Women in Linux is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization created to get women involved in the field of IT using Linux as a foundation. You can connect with Women in Linux through social media at Women in Linux on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To join weekly meetups, go to meetups.com/Women in Linux. For more information and to connect with Women in Linux, go to www.womeninlinux.com.